Good afternoon. We're here for our official notice of public hearing. I'm going to read this verbatim. The topic is Proposed Plan Development Hub of Clemson, an application for a plan development as submitted by CS Acquisition LLC on November 3rd, 2023. If approved as proposed, 9 parcels totaling approximately 5.5 acres near Kiwi Trail and Wall Street in the Uptown District of the city will be developed as a mixed-use plan development project comprised of 450 student-oriented residential units, 1,300 beds, and 8,500 square feet of commercial retail space. This will be the second public hearing on this matter. There's also documents on the city website. I'm going to read a couple other things just to remind everyone, if you haven't been to a public hearing. A public hearing is understood to be a forum for people interested in the subject matter to present information to City Council for its consideration as it deliberates an issue. It is not a forum for debate or argument between members of the council and opponents or proponents of each other. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes unless City Council authorizes one extension of 3 minutes. Please, with all speakers, please be encouraged, if you're saying the same thing, please simply state that you agree with that issue with the previous speaker and bring new information to the subject. You also have the opportunity, if you'd like to devote your time, you can do that. Allocation of 1 or more speakers can devote your time. You can give it to somebody else for a total time for that speaker not exceeding 20 minutes. So normally during a public hearing, we have the development would actually, or the proposed developer would come up and give an update up to 20 minutes. We've limited it to 5 minutes to make sure we have adequate time for public hearing for all comments. So I'm going to start it off with CS Acquisition LLC to give us an update within 5 minutes. And before you do that, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I did. Thank you, Jeremiah. I'm looking at you. If you need any hearing devices, we do have those up here. Jeremiah has them. Is that correct? Or Stephen? Stephen has them. So please, if you need that, if it's from a hearing perspective, please, we have those ADA compliant hearing devices. Sorry. Thank you.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Andy Savoy. I'm the applicant, CS Acquisition LLC. That's Core Spaces. It's a company, having trouble flipping.
You might be too far away for the remote to work.
Give me a second. Can we open, this and?
It's a PDF.
All right, so Core Spaces is based in Chicago. We're a student housing developer. Own 30,000 beds across the country. A lot of them here in Clemson. So we're, somebody from Core Spaces has been in Clemson every week for the past 3 years. Notably, we've done the pier and a few other projects. We're here to talk about this assemblage here along Kiwi Trail across from Abernathy Park. The purple is what we have under contract to develop. It is basically a collection of vacant houses, some office buildings. And so as we started to think about what we would propose, we did reference the kind of Uptown Next study that seemed to have the goal of leveraging the financeability of student housing in order to create public space and to activate not only Abernathy Park, but also the rest of the superblock. And so our proposal, which we've been here 6 times to present, is meant to do just that. And so we've been here, as I said, many times. It's always been around 1,300 beds, around 450-ish units. Right now we're at 450 units and 1,325 beds. And this is kind of a breakdown of where we are. You'll notice we did increase the retail up to 10,000 square feet, and that was a reaction to a council workshop last week. I can kind of go over the kind of, these are all the different kind of, all the feedback we've gotten from Plan Commission, the Architectural Review Board, and then also City Council just last week. And so we heard 6 things, basically increase retail square footage, provide a plan for the effective leasing of the retail, provide removable bollards so the city could perhaps shut down Kiwi Trail which we're okay with, and then contribute to the design fees and management of the park itself. Unify the brick color at the base, which we did, and so we did the 3 things in green, and we're working on the 3 things in yellow. We're working on a way to figure that out. I can answer more in the questions because I only have 5 minutes. And so just to go over the site plan, we're proposing everything inside of this red line. And so that's basically a parking deck with an amenity deck on top of it, and then a residential building that is 5 stories if you looked at it from College Avenue, 7 stories if you looked at it from Kiwi Trail. And that's going to have a 1-acre plaza that basically expands the size of the park. It creates public space, and that would have a perpetual public use easement over it, so it could be used just like the park by anyone. Just run it up through the building. So red is retail, orange is our lobby, and yellow are units. So retail right in the middle of that plaza. We have our lobby on the south, townhome units on the north, and then townhome units again on the south. So there's several instances where we have townhome type units that open up straight onto the frontage of the property. As you go up, it turns into more of a typical kind of corridor building. There is a pass-through that connects Wall Street with a pedestrian path that goes down into the park. And then as I scroll up, you get more of a typical plan here, going up through the building, and then you see our roof deck space. This is a diagram where blue is pedestrian, orange is vehicular use. This kind of just shows, we can refer to this later, I was not aware I'd only have 5 minutes. So this basically just shows how pedestrians would access that plaza and how they would use the parking. There is a public parking component here as well, 75 public parking spaces that would be only for the public and serve that plaza and the retail users, and that would be provided as part of the project. And then the rest of the presentation shows you how we're proposing that it looks. And so we got our inspiration from these beautiful kind of loft buildings that you see all around the Carolinas. And then also we have examples of Southern architecture where there's kind of clean white form. And so we've kind of combined those ideas so that there's this really articulate base, including arches like you see in some of the mill buildings, and then these kind of pure forms sitting on top of it. This is a view of townhomes that are kind of lining that large garage so that it's not just a blank wall there. These are some large views of that plaza. We spin around. And views from the park. A view head on of our entry lobby. We have a kind of a retail building proposed right in the middle of that plaza, so that's, we're calling it a newspaper stand. These are some townhomes, and so that is pretty much the look of the building. I know a lot of you have seen this many times already. I'll just leave you with this. It's just a list of the public benefits that are coming with this project. So you have increased park space, an acre of park space on private land with a perpetual public use easement. You have improved pedestrian connectivity. We're getting rid of all the curb cuts along Kiwi Trail. We're providing a sidewalk extension to the cat bus that's on Kiwi Trail in College. And we're removing eyesore properties. We're activating the public space with retail uses. And we're working on creating a leasing program that would provide retail above market tenant improvement packages with some level of rental abatement to attract certain types of retail users to that space that could be, documented in the PD document and could activate that park in the way that I think we both want it to be activated. We're also adding 75 free structured parking spaces. We're minimizing automobile trips because the more students live near campus and can walk there every day, that means the less they have to drive there every day. And driving to Walmart once a week is a lot less than driving to school 7 times a day. So we think this will actually reduce traffic overall. We're increasing the tax base, so roughly a $2.1 million per year tax base increase forever, and that's roughly $600K of that per year is going to Clemson itself. We will be paying impact fees approximately $1 million of park impact fees to help for the hard costs of the park. And then also we are exploring ways to provide private funding to pay for the design and project management of the public side of the park so that it can be one kind of cohesive idea. And so that's a lot of public benefits in my opinion. And I think, I don't know how many of my minutes have gone by, but I've blown through. Go.
Right up. All right.
That's where we are.
Next, again, I'm just going to remind everybody, you're limited to 5 minutes, and Jeremiah has a clock right up here. So when you please come up, just please state your name, where you live, and then Jeremiah will start the clock that everybody can see. I cannot see it, but I'll hear it. Yes, yes, sir.
What sign over here?
I'm Linda Gahan. I'm at 101 Martin Street. I've lived here for over 50 years, seen a lot of changes in Clemson. I'd like to take my time to talk to you about Clemson Next Strategic Plan, the goals it put forth, and how your proposed plan development meets these goals. You provided at the last hearing a nice summary sheet of the strategic plan that was developed about 3 years ago during the time we had COVID. And they were looking, and you hired a consultant out of St. Louis, if I remember right. And they came up here and got a lot of input from the citizens and presented their projects at Nettles Park. I remember going and getting a sticker on my jacket and regretting that because it had sticky stuff and still on my jacket. So anyway, this was a project to create a district of special community focus. Community, it's where we all live. That might include just the residents, or it might include the students and the visitors that come here, our community. So we want something that had special community focus. So one goal was to establish a welcoming gateway to downtown Clemson at the corner of Tiger Boulevard and College Avenue. What this plan proposes is to put student apartments and townhouses, retail space, parking garages, and a plaza in part of this district. How is that different? And this would be in Uptown. How is that different than downtown, where we have Earl Street, we have Campus View, we have Bixby's, we have the Youth Center. They all have student apartments, they all have parking garages, and they all have retail space, some of which is occupied and some of it not. So how does that make it a special community focus? How does that give it special community focus? Second goal was to celebrate and improve access to Clemson's natural asset, particularly Lake Hartwell. We have Larry Abernathy Park there. It is our city park on the lake. It has a lot of potential. It has a wonderful boardwalk, place for fishing. But we learned from this project that they have given the city an extra acre of land. Well, that's wonderful, but we still have to contend with the students that are there, and maybe that's what makes it a gateway, because it's near the Larry Abernathy Park. Their impact fees could be used to improve the park, but you have other impact fees all over the city from other projects that could be used for this park. I'm sure you use some of your impact fees to help Nettles Park. Third goal, create dynamic gathering spaces that attract a broad diversity of users. Now, if you put all those students up there and create a student community, How's that going to attract visitors, residents to this area? They have a different culture than we do, than some of us who are older, some of us who are middle-aged. So how is that going to create a dynamic gathering space that will attract a broad diversity of users? Establish safe and comfortable bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. It does that. That's great. Another goal is to create commercial spaces that are consistently occupied. How can they guarantee they will be consistently occupied? Create, and with uses that draw a variety of visitors. You have a community of students up there. If you are a business person and you want to establish a business up there, you're going to look at the people that are closest to that business because they're going to be the ones that are going to frequent the area. So, and finally, just a second longer, it will serve the uptown's residential population. You're putting students up there, so you're serving the students. So I would urge you to consider these goals that you established, that you used our tax
Linda,
money for.
we need to stay consistent with 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna make sure going forward, that's why I'm giving a little more leeway. Let's give them a minute warning when they're coming to 5 minutes.
Okay.
So, and you were the first one, Linda, so please, if you got 10 seconds, please finish out.
Okay, I would just encourage you to consider these goals that you established for the Clemson Next Strategic Plan.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you. So going forward, like I said, Jeremiah is going to give a minute warning just to make sure. And we want to make sure everybody has plenty of time, and that's why we're staying with the 5 minutes, no matter what you're saying tonight.
We got hearing issues and the sound.
Sound? That would be
It's up all the way.
it's up all the way? Okay. We'll talk louder. I'll talk louder if I need to, but hopefully you can hear from the podium. That's the most important. Okay.
Mayor and Council, I'm Steve Mudge. I know most of you. I live 139 Folger Street. Been a resident and owner in Clemson since 2009. I'm an unabashed real estate developer. I favor planned, good growth. I served on the initial Clemson Next Committee and was involved in the white paper that was the basis for the current planning. And as I look at what's before you today, I'm pretty much of the opinion that the project as designed is set to fail the city of Clemson and the surrounding neighborhoods. And the reason that I say that is that I think the committee initially, and certainly I as a property owner in Clemson, expected a master developer to come in, and so when we were talking about the project now, we'd be talking about the whole project. What we appear to have is a student housing developer who's grabbed on to the prime piece of real estate in this tract and is not focused at all on the remaining 10 acres. So I see a plan that monopolizes the park, monopolizes the lake, has very limited and awkward public access from other parts of it, very few view corridors from the other parts of it, and you know, just think could be a lot better for the city. And that's basically it. I just think it's not well planned. I don't think it looks at the whole. For this to work, it's got to have extreme balance with the entire 15 acres, not just the 5 that are proposed. I've asked about and looked for market research from day one as to how the master plan is going to be put together and how it serves students, because I know students are going to be part of it, how it's going to serve permanent residents, and how it's going to serve the balance of Clemson and be a destination for those outside of Clemson. And I don't think it does it. Happy to answer any questions.
Steve, I have a question. Do you think that there should be more acreage? Is it that it's too compact and too small of an acreage?
I mean, it's just a massive building surrounding the park taking away all the views, all of the access, and all of it benefits student housing, except for the few little bits of retail that are there. I mean, all the amenities are waterfront for the student housing. I can't tell if there are, I see a note of townhouses, but I don't know if they're for sale, for rent, if they're all going to be student. I don't know what's going to make it all be available to other than students. There's just a lot of details of the plan that aren't here.
So, no, going forward though, let's make sure all city council agrees that we're asking questions back and forth. Appreciate the comments. We're here to listen, so let's make sure all city council approves any questions. So I'm just saying going forward, we're making sure we're staying to what the rules say within our ordinance on public hearing. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to be consistent.
Nancy Spitler. I live at 210 Edgewood Avenue, and I'm speaking on behalf of the CHWE as well as a number of other city residents who have signed on to this letter. Members of City Council, the idea of Clemson Next, with a considerable amount of public input, was to create a welcoming space for adults, residents, and visitors to enjoy, not to create one massive student housing complex. The Uptown Next report states, non-residential commercial uses should be focused on College Avenue and Abernathy Park to enhance both environments as inclusive community spaces. Particular attention should be paid to establishing Abernathy Park as a vibrant community destination. Density should be focused within the core of Uptown, with relatively less building height and density facing Abernathy Park and College Avenue. Building setbacks and stepbacks can help establish a human-scale public realm throughout the project and support variation within the building envelope. What the developer has proposed is quite the opposite. 7-story, high-density, rent-by-the-bed apartments on the entire stretch of Kiowee Trail. The Clemson Next recommendation of commercial uses to enhance the community space is also being pushed aside. To obtain a general idea of the amount of commercial space being provided for this size development, we looked at Bixby and the Signet and compared the commercial space per bed. And I realize that amount has been upped somewhat, but before this had been upped, the Bixby has almost 6 times the commercial space per bed. And the Signet will have more than 4 times the amount of commercial space per bed. Plus it'll have 4 townhouses for workforce housing. We do not think the trade-off of 7-story rent-by-the-bed student housing with minimal commercial offerings is worth ceding Abernathy Park to this development as an amenity. There have been a number of benefits to the city touted. Decreased traffic due to residents walking to class. We can accomplish that same goal by increasing and/or incentivizing cat bus ridership from the various complexes, and do it without this type of development taking over the last green space in the uptown downtown area. A public use easement for the plaza area. We initially thought this property would be deeded to the city. From the ordinance, it sounds as if the city would have to get permission from core spaces to have events there. The city deserves more of a public benefit than 50 parking spaces and access to a ½ acre of land for the increase in density core spaces is asking for. 3.5 acres of green space. Well, it's not actually green space. It's plaza open space, and that includes things like privately owned drives and surface parking as open space. It will settle the potential for a lawsuit against the city. And I realize this is an issue for you all. Hopefully, at the end of the day, council will assess this project on its merits with a focus on long-term visibility for the benefit of the city and surrounding community, and deal with the lawsuit separately. The future of the city and this council's legacy is worth more than that. And an added point, any developer or landowner who tries to threaten and bully the city into working with them is not a developer the city should be supporting. And the fact that apparently the investors paid too much for this property to make it viable as it is zoned is not the city's responsibility. The Uptown Next plan, developed by consultants, had a tremendous amount of community input. And this plan development is diametrically opposed to the goals and hopes of that plan. How can we as community members have any faith in how our city is moving forward if this development is approved? We ask you, we beg you, to stand by your earlier stated convictions about this section of our city. We have elected you and trusted you to do the best thing for our city and for citizens.
I live at 202 Crest Circle in the city of Clemson, and I've lived here in the city of Clemson for 50 years, more in fact. There's been a lot said about the facts. What happens to the traffic jams at 123, anyway, of emergency vehicles being able to get through to the other side of the railroad tracks, of the runoff that will run into the cove that you want to protect. But the real essence of this is the people care about Abernathy Park. It's an emotional issue for many of us that we faced Bilo trying to move in, what was it, 20, 30 years ago, and that was stopped because the people care about that cove, they care about Abernathy Park. When it's gone, if it's gone, all we have is a collection of dormitories. And we like that park. We use that park. If you let this development go in, the grass will go, the shade trees will go. All we will have left is some concrete down to the edge of what the Corps of Army Engineers owns. The parking will be moved where people like me will find it rather inconvenient to get to the park. But bear in mind that this is really an emotional issue for the city. You didn't get this result on the previous buildings. You've all participated in candidate fairs, candidate forums. The issue there was always, will you protect our city? And for many people, protecting our city was protecting Abernathy Park. And you did not get this problem with the last approved building. It's this one. Please consider other ways to handle this. You could zone this place. You could buy out the Clemson area people who have invested in it. You can issue bonds. I really think you might consider how much we care about this. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Katie Healy, and I live on Folger Street. But tonight I'm not talking about myself or what my feelings are. I'm reading a letter that was given to me from one of our residents, and so I'm just the deliverer of that. On behalf of the residents of the Able, Cadillac Heights, Calhoun, and Red Hill communities in Clemson, which are historically Black neighborhoods in Clemson, I would like to say no to the student development. We have been gentrified enough. There is so much encroachment in Clemson by student housing that there is no affordable place for full-time residents to live anymore.
Amen.
The university does not pay enough for people in these communities to live comfortably in the city. So why is the city bending over backward to ensure that students have enough places to live instead of ensuring that the workforce housing becomes a priority?
Here, here.
Many people who work at the university make $40,000 or less a year. According to Redfin.com, the median sale of a price of a home in Clemson was $384,000 last month, up 24.8% since last year. Clemson's median sale price per square foot is $163, up 15.6% since last year. How can someone making $40,000 a year purchase a home here? Since most apartment complexes here rent by the bedroom because they cater to students, how can any family afford on an average how can a family afford $2,400 a month for a 3-bedroom apartment? At what point will the city be concerned about the full-time residents instead of students? Many student housing complexes aren't even full, so why do we need more, especially in an area where people go to enjoy nature? If construction companies and real estate investors want to come to Clemson, they should be willing to consider the needs of the residents. We need more things for residents to do in the city. Why should we have to go to Anderson, Seneca, or even as far as Greenville for our younger residents who are not college kids to have something to do? We have to shop in Anderson or Seneca, and we have to go to Anderson or Greenville to have fun things to do. Clemson does not offer its full-time residents enough amenities. Instead, it builds more expensive, high-rise, so-called mixed-use complexes. At what point will the madness stop? It is up to the City Council to save the residents from further encroachment from Clemson University. Enough is enough. And this is from the residents of Clemson's Black communities, Lisa Bennett of the Able Community Liaison. Thank you.
Do not disturb is now on.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Simmons. I'm the property manager of 111 Cochrane, Clemson Lofts. I've been a property manager in Clemson going on 10 years now. I was at Campus View, Earl, Dockside, and Mansfield Existence, and then now at Clemson Lofts. I am all for this property for the fact that it entitles kids to come to Clemson. Clemson is a suitcase college. Look at your budget for Christmas and summer when all the kids pack up and leave. Clemson shuts down. The restaurants shut down. I had a really good friendship with Doug Zarbel at Earpie about that, and we talked to discuss how kids could come to his property. And during those downtimes, he doesn't make any money. So inviting kids to come to the downtown market's what y'all need. The big thing that I heard is the parking garage. I'm all for it. Park and walk. A lot of these kids now, there's not enough parking downtown Clemson to have kids come and live. I know Campus U doesn't have enough parking for their students. Earl's parking garage has 25 spots for the city, and there's one private lot for people to park. This property provides parking for students to leave their cars and they can walk. They can enjoy the downtown. As far as the park goes, the park is everyone knows Abernathy Park, but look at it right now. It's in shambles. The properties across the street are run down by vines, trees, and disgusting buildings. This property is going to come in, fix it up, and make it look nice. It's also going to give the green space to Abernathy Park, which is what it needs. It needs a facelift. It is very old. I, for one, love Abernathy Park. I go there for interviews, but it does need a facelift. This property is going to give it that. This property is going to invite people to come. Like I said, we are a suitcase college, unfortunately. So I think we should look at that, look at the effect it's going to have on just the economy alone, offering jobs to people who are going to come in. Yes, they're college kids, but still jobs. The locals can get jobs too at these places. So look at the economy of what this is going to do for the downtown market. That's it.
Elizabeth Vogt, 201 Martin Street. I'd like to segue on this issue of lawsuit, and let's be very clear about this. In either 2000 or 2016, 2015 or 16, Greg Smith, Clinton Smith, and their registered agent, Kevin Collins, and for those of you who don't know, Greg Smith is President Jim Clement's brother-in-law. Clint Smith is President Clement's father-in-law, and Kevin Collins speculated on a land purchase on Kiwi Trail. They engaged in real estate speculation to buy that property. In the ensuing years, because of the moratorium, they have alleged that the city has inhibited their ability to make a profit on the property. And in 2021, Kiwi Trail, the Smiths and Kevin Collins, doing business as Kiwi Trail LLC, filed a lawsuit against the city, basically alleging the same, that the city was inhibiting their ability to develop and to make money. The city's purpose is not to guarantee a land speculator's profit. I want to reiterate that this plan, as proposed, and I want to emphasize, I am not opposed to development on Kiwi Trail, bears no resemblance to Clemson Next, that we were all asked to attend, that the city spent a tremendous amount of money facilitating this study. And putting more student housing up there is not consistent with this plan. Now, the latest legal filing that was done in December of this past year, December of 2023, basically said the lawsuit will not move forward contingent upon a vote taken in the first quarter of 2024. It doesn't say an affirmative vote. It doesn't say an approval. So I would submit to you that you have the ability to deny this project as proposed. You have the ability to approve it as straight zoning. You have a number of different legal options available to you because as far as I'm concerned, unless somebody wishes to correct me, there has been no guarantee to approve this project as proposed. So I would ask the developers to go back to the drawing board or the city to go back to the drawing board and make something that is consistent with what people in this town want. The other thing is that this myth that students don't drive to school, right? Okay? Well, let me tell you something. I live downtown, and last spring, because the City of Clemson Police Department would not do it, I asked, I believe it was Captain Harrington with the CUPD, to conduct a traffic study on Martin Street. And while he basically determined that the drivers were not going in great excess of the speed, he said he was shocked at the number of cars moving up and down Martin Street, on the order of 700 to 800 a day. People cannot go up and down College, and they are cutting through our neighborhoods. They are infringing on our property values, our quality of life, and if anybody thinks that Clemson Hub is going to be any different, they're sorely misguided. So I would ask you all to take your charge as City Council, evaluate this project, evaluate, is this something that the residents want, right? And move forward in a way that is consistent with what we want. The other thing is, and I'll just make one last statement, City Council and government in general is supposed to be a reflection of the people's will. It is not staking out a position and then bending the people's will to what that position is. So if people say, we don't want this, right, then I think that that is something that you all need to take to heart. So thank you for your time.
My name is Lindy Traglia. I live in Calhoun Forest, down Highway 133, and I just want to say I would have been here earlier, but I was stuck in traffic. 2 cars could go at a time coming from 133 to 123 to get around. So daily issue, no matter what time of day. A lot of things I was going to address have been addressed, so I'll just bring up 2 different points. Commercial spaces desperately needed for downtown, 75 parking spots. And correct me if I'm wrong, those were supposed to be, we could park there until 10 o'clock, 10:30, was that it? And then we were gonna be asked to move our cars? Is that how it was? Ridiculous. If we go out downtown, we're staying past. I'm not gonna go move my car, I just won't go downtown that night, I'll go somewhere else. Again, the students will park in those spots. They'll just go move their cars, they're used to it, they don't care. And they all drive. Walk-ons, for example, we have gone to eat there, I don't know how many times. Parking lot's full even though the restaurant's not. One thing that one of our neighborhood residents brought up is looking into the future, and I hadn't even thought about this, but it's pertinent. Has anything in this project or any other project looked forward enough that if, say the current federal administration all is reelected and forces us electric vehicles, where are we going to put the charging stations? It's going to take up a massive amount of space for 30,000 students to be plugging in their cars. Has that been addressed? Is it the developer that has to do that or the taxpayers? Just a thought. So I just want to conclude that on behalf of Calhoun Forest, I haven't talked to one resident who is for this proposal. Thank you.
I'm Nelson Vasquez. I also live in Calhoun Forest. I'm a neighbor of Lindy. And I want to thank you first, Mayor, council members, for being here. I'm sure you all work all day and you still come here. I'm impressed. You all are really paying attention. So John, Catherine, Bob, Alicia, Lillian, John, thank you. And thanks for allowing us, gentlemen from CORE, to speak up. I'm concerned about you shutting off that street, Kiwi Trail, because that's my shortcut. I mean, I'm coming from ATI across the lake. It used to take about 3 or 4 minutes 15 years ago when I moved here. And now it takes a good 10 minutes to go about a half a mile, because I have to take that left turn. And in Miami, it took me 30 minutes to go 10 miles. So this traffic getting home is worse than Miami, the main reason I left Miami. Just adding this traffic mess to Clemson at this H pattern that I read about, I didn't know a lot about that. Have to apologize, I haven't read up a lot because my wife took away my newspaper privileges, and because I read news a lot on my phone. But when the U Center on College was going up, I wrote an editorial because of what was going on and how big that building was. And I think I wrote something like, who made Winthrop king of Clemson? Because the realtors are kind of taken over. And, you know, sad thing. So I came here a few years ago when the project at the Holiday Insight, I was standing outside when it was so crowded, and I saw that picture. And Abernathy, I thought he was looking at me and saying, speak up, because I usually don't speak up at places like this. And so I came up and I spoke up, and I want you guys to take a look at him. He's looking at you guys, not really at them. He's looking at us and what we mean to this city, and I think it's really important. And he will be against this project. Okay, if you could resurrect Clemson family and the Calhoun family, they will be against this project. And I think most of us are. I even think most of you are against it. So it's just a vote that you have to take to go against this. One major thing that this has happened to no one but me. My daughter worked at Chick-fil-A. She dropped off her boyfriend at El Humidor. She tried to zip across to get to work because she was a little, and she got hit. Okay, she ruined my RAV4. It flipped 3 times. She was hanging upside down for about 15, 20 minutes because of the traffic. Okay, and this traffic is going to get much worse. There's 1,000 students. How many cars does that mean? How are they going to get across? So I think this project is going to be dangerous. Those who, if you close off Kiwi Trail, you know what the students are going to do? They're going to run across the Chick-fil-A. That's where all the students love Chick-fil-A. They're going to run across. And what happened at Esso when someone was trying to get across, they got hit. They got killed. And I bet that's going to happen here. So I strongly say you're a nice man, you have a nice project going on, you have some nice open spaces. It looks nice, it really does. I think you're trying to do your best. But I don't think that's the best for us. So thank you, guys.
Good evening. I'm Donna Crater. I live at 512 Shorecrest. And forgive me for speaking so loud, but I listened last month, and on the computer, the sound is very, very poor. As the visuals, a lot of the light reflects, so all you get is just a glass look. I've been a resident of Clemson for 46 years, 25 of those on Shorecrest, 21 in Clemson Gardens behind Gateway, what we know as Gateway Park now. In 1982, I petitioned my neighbors to oppose a proposed zoning change that would allow for a large apartment complex bordering on our neighborhood where the Clemson Presbyterian Church is currently at Gateway Park. I was young then. Now I'm a little older, and I've been before you any number of times, and I've been before councils before this. And I'm still coming before council to speak in opposition to a project that, in addition to all the other mid-rises in town, will continue to overwhelm not only Clemson's downtown residents, but any who have to travel through Clemson for any reason. I'm saddened to see that many have spoken at so many public hearings for so many past projects of this nature that we are talking about tonight are no longer here to speak. And I'm going to look around just a minute. I do see some familiar faces, but a lot are not here. Perhaps because they're tired of bringing their concerns to council as residents of the city, and perhaps because they felt so overlooked for so many years, raising their objections. It takes some nerve to come up here, knowing there's cameras focused on you and speaking out. I personally feel like we've been hit by a tsunami of concrete, vehicular traffic, pedestrian traffic, noise, and unbelievable growth in too short a period of time to give us a chance to even register it. Yet we have not only have this Kiwi project before us, but another of similar proportions proposed for development opposite the Bixby downtown. That's scary. Well, I've watched the city make accommodations for these developments, and hearing these will be good for city revenues as a resident, I'm going to interject. I was a little surprised tonight. It's a $2.1 million project, I think, and the city is only getting $600,000 of that in tax revenues. If I interpreted that correctly. I live on a city street that hasn't been resurfaced for years. It's patch over and over again. And as I understand, it's not scheduled to be resurfaced for another perhaps 6 or 7 years out. When we had sewer improvements back probably in the early 2000s, we were told we would have a resurfacing, but we've since been told that it will be a number of years out yet. Streetlights are not a given on many of our neighborhood streets, yet there are more pedestrians and vehicles traveling them due to increased population. When I travel to pick up my grandchildren at night, I'm appalled that Mountain View Lane is just absolutely dark. It's very scary. Many neighborhood streets do not have sidewalks for pedestrian traffic, Shorecrest being one. I took these for granted growing up. And while we speak of Abernathy Park being a gym, trash collects there along the shorelines day by day and is not being collected on a regular basis. I don't mean the trash cans, those are being taken care of. But walking there, there's an awful lot of trash. It is our gym, it should be our gym. So I hope that we can get that cleaned up someday. So I wonder where the tax revenues are going that are promised to the city that are to benefit residents. And I'm speaking as a resident who's feeling a little bit orphaned after being in front of the city council for so many times. Finally, living on Shorecrest, I travel Kiowee Trail a lot. As much as I've tried, I cannot fathom the density being proposed on such a small acreage. Not only, but I cannot fathom vehicular traffic exiting off of Kiowee onto 123 more than what it does at the present time. And if I missed something, I heard the gentleman say it was being closed off. I'm sorry. That was the last I'd heard. The thought of increased volume of traffic entering College Avenue from Wall Street is just frightening. I come up 123, make a left onto College Avenue a lot. And you never know when somebody's going to be pulling in front of you to get into. I think one of the prime duties of this council is to provide for the safety of its residents. With the traffic hazards increasing, I don't feel safe anymore. And I know I'm not one of the younger ones living downtown. I don't see this project enhancing our safety, and therefore hope you will oppose this project. And thank you for the opportunity to speak and your time. Thank you.
Hi, Peter Hyatt at 110 Roslyn Drive. I really don't think this is an issue of some people want it and some people don't want it. Like, unless you're benefiting financially, I don't know anybody that actually wants this in Clemson. I like to speak from just a parks, rec, tourism, culture standpoint. If it's zoned, I mean, if it is a planned development, there's benefits, like he just mentioned. 75 parking spaces, some open space. I would love to see Abernathy Park developed into something that is useful for everyone. Yeah, I do have concerns that it'll be run over by students, but we all know there's 3.5 months per year where their students are not around as much. I would love to see a park with an amphitheater, kayak opportunities, food trucks, docks, something that literally every person in this room actually could use during the summer. My fear is that if it's not a planned development, we still get student housing with no benefits. And that's my fear. I'm not a huge fan of student housing, but if we're gonna get student housing, to me this is our best option, because I love Abernathy Park and I want to see that being a useful space where literally it would unite every one of us. So if we want to unite over something, nobody's just dying for student housing, right? No, nobody. But I think this is a good option if we're going to get it.
We'll wait till, yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir, Nelson. We want to make sure everybody else has the opportunity. make sure. I'm gonna go tell everybody out there. Make sure. Thanks, John.
Hello, Chad Carson with 213 Lark Circle, and I'm here as a local resident who loves Clemson and spends a lot of time trying to volunteer and make Clemson a better place. So I've heard from a lot of people about this project that we should reject it because, number one, we'd be telling Clemson University that we don't want any more student housing here. The university wants to keep growing. They should buy their own housing, build their own housing on their abundant land, and stop swallowing up what's left of the character of our town. Also because for our city leaders, I've heard that we should show that we have some backbone and that we're not puppets of the university or greedy developers who don't even live here, who build cheap buildings and then move on to another town. It feels good to think that's the consequence if we say no to this proposal. And I'll admit I'm sympathetic because the university growing at the pace it is not something I'm fond of. I wish it wasn't putting all the pressure it is on our town. But that's not likely the consequence if we say no. A no decision would actually, in my opinion, first of all, it wouldn't change the mind of Clemson University as much as we would like it to. The economic forces and the policies that drive the growth of the university and their on-campus housing decisions are bigger than one development in Uptown. Maybe we could and should talk more openly with the university leaders and the board of trustees about changing this approach. But even if we were successful, I fear that the direction of university policies, they change about as fast as a big ocean-going vessel turns around. And in the meantime, the market demand for these types of properties, as we all know, we've heard about the tsunami of projects coming in, the market demand is real for these projects. And if they're not built here, somewhere downtown, they're going to be built somewhere off campus, and the only guarantee is they will be driving the campus somewhere else. The second thing that I think would happen, and probably the most important, this has already been discussed tonight, is that these property owners will likely continue with their lawsuit. It's easy for all of us, we're not the decision makers, to say, kind of in a cavalier way, that we should be tough, that we should hire great attorneys, that we should fight property owners who are trying to intimidate us. That sounds good, but what if the city loses? In South Carolina, the reality of what we have is that we are a strong property rights state, and there's a very good possibility that we would lose. I'm not a legal expert, but I do know, as someone who looks at property values, that we're talking about many millions, potentially tens of millions of dollars. We all have to make our own decisions about what we want our leaders to do, but personally, I don't like the idea of our city leaders gambling with public funds in this way. Roll the dice, we lose millions of dollars. Roll the dice and we win, and that's the thing. Even if we win, this property can still be built with student housing. And after the hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees we'd have to pay after that win, we'd have student housing that would not have any public hearings like we have now. They would build to the maximum of all the setback lines on that property without setting aside any property for public benefit, because that's their legal right. It's always been their legal right, and we've just been delaying the inevitable. And so that's not changing after this no vote or yes vote. So that leaves us with saying yes and accepting this development in some form. We spent many years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to create a strategic plan for growth. The bottom line is that the core of this proposal in general is with that strategic plan. And while it has drawbacks and things that I've heard many comments tonight that I personally agree with, it also has the opportunity to be the catalyst for many public improvements that our kids, my kids who go to schools here in Clemson, and my grandkids will thank us for. And you know, that's the nature of public decisions. By their nature, they're imperfect, they're messy. I think about Greenville and some of the decisions they made that were very unpopular that actually led to the downtown Greenville that we have today. There were rooms similar to this filled, asking them not to tear down Camperdown Way, for example. So I don't envy your decision, City Council. I don't envy you having to make tough decisions. I personally know all of you as neighbors and friends and appreciate your integrity and your intelligence. And I trust that you'll make a clear-eyed decision that keeps the long-term interest of our community in mind. Thank you.
Good evening, Paul Healy, 140 Folger Street. Just two questions or two comments. With a project this size, I have not heard about a traffic study or an environmental study that has been done for this project for this area. I think it's critical because obviously traffic is a problem. I think everybody will admit that. And we need a study done to say, well, can it be handled under this type of a proposal? The other is an environmental, and that's just not stormwater. That's the effect on the environment, the fact that I'm sure all the trees will be removed. We now have more impermeable surfaces there, and it's critical that in order to do a project like this and study it properly, you need the proper materials. And like I say, the environmental study and the traffic study should certainly be parts of any consideration. Thank you.
Should I sign in before or after?
Go inside, Nelson.
Whichever.
I can understand the need for student housing. I teach at the university, and if there weren't students, I wouldn't have a job. However, I really resent Clemson University's abdication of the responsibility to house their own damn students. They should have more dormitories than they do, or more apartment complexes. And to be brutally honest with you people, if you do not stop developers from taking every square inch of downtown and turning it into a 7-story apartment complex, you will not be the city council. You will be a council that manages an apartment complex.
I'm sorry, could I have your name? Could I have your name?
I'm sorry, Hughes. I live at 210 Edgewood.
I realize y'all may have known him, I did not.
Hi, my name is David Allison. I live at 107 Princess Lane, Clemson. And this body's heard me before on numerous occasions regarding this development. So I'm only going to try to make a few points today. I think this is an inappropriate development for this city in terms of its scale, in terms of the scale of the building footprint, in terms of the design of the building complex that's being proposed. I'm not necessarily against density. I support the idea of a park. I think there's other ways to get the park, and there's other ways to make this development much more compatible with the city of Clemson. I just wanted to point out a few things relative to the scale of this building in our community. So from corner to corner, by the information that's available to us, we estimate this building is 718 feet from corner to corner, one continuous building in this town. The facade length is 1,098 if you don't even account for all the ins and outs. But the uninterrupted frontage of this building facing this park that's being proposed is immense. So if you go to the next slide, Andy, you will see how this building compares with two of the largest city blocks in the United States. Let me get it up. So one is New York City, where the block that the Empire State Building exists. And those blocks generally run in the range of about 925 feet by about 230 feet. So you can see how this building compares to a city block in the largest city in the United States. It would not even fit on one city block. So I just want you to get a sense of the scale, because people cannot imagine things before they happen. If you go to Chicago, where the old Sears high-rise, one of the tallest buildings in the United States, exists, the typical city block in Chicago is about 320 by 360 feet. This building would not fit on 2 city blocks in Chicago. And this is a town of how many people? 17,000 permanent residents? 18 now? We have nothing of the scale of this. We've had large student housing complexes in this community already, but nothing at the scale of this. This is truly, an unprecedented scale violation on our city in terms of the footprint of this building. I'm not against height. I'm not against density. I think there are places for that. But this design is truly completely out of character with this community. It does not honor, it honors maybe the Clemson Next Plan in the sense of a spreadsheet in terms of numbers of units, numbers of students, and things like that. It does not honor the intent of the Clemson Next vision, which is a plan, which was a physical vision for what that part of the city was about, with small blocks, connected network of streets that were multi-purpose vehicular and pedestrian pathways with sidewalks, and this does not honor the Clemson Next Plan in terms of its intent. It might be within the scope of its physical numbers proposed for this part of town, but it does not honor its intent. I think it's fundamentally unsafe in many ways. It's an unsafe building. It's an unsafe site development. It's an unsafe part of our city. That's it. Thank you.
I live in the Wildlife Preserve, better known as Dalewood Subdivision. We have attracted all the wildlife from the surrounding areas of development in Clemson. They love our neighborhood because we're surrounded by 2 rivers, and they're not going to leave, so we are taking care of them. But having said that, I would like to first ask if any of you council members know if there has ever been a representative from Clemson University Student Housing that attended any of these hearings. I think that says a lot. That says a lot about what we've been talking about tonight. When I was involved with Build a Better Clemson, we had to get people to sign petitions against basically what's going on here, what went on at Dockside, whatever. And surprisingly enough, I didn't expect this response, but I talked to some students one day, and they gave me a different perspective on this. These are students that attend Clemson University that are our local students. They're from the central 6 Mile area, Pendleton. And their comment was, we don't want this because we can't afford to live down there. We're just local kids. So they have to commute in and out of here because the rents have gone sky high. We owe them more than that. These are our local kids. I'd like to make another point. I don't care if it's 8,500 square feet of retail. I don't care if it's 10,000. Is there a guarantee, and what have we put in place to make sure that that commercial real estate is full or partially full? We have, yes, a very good percentage of commercial property supposedly that's filled in Clemson, but my question is, what is the percentage of commercial that's filled in these projects, just these new projects? That's what I'd like to know, because coming here tonight, we're all looking at that project down there on 76 coming in with all those lovely banners in the windows and just one restaurant in there. I'm not clear, and I'm just asking this because I really would like this explained about these impact fees that we're going to get. First it was $2 million, now I see $3 million, and this could be just misquotes in the paper, in the newspapers, but the 600, and then there's the 600,000, and how that's going to be used. But regardless of all of that, what we're basically doing if this project goes through is that we're going to have another park. And you know, it's questionable as to who that's going to serve. Is it going to serve those students in these apartments? And the developers at a previous meeting said this is geared to students. Are we going to do that, or are we going to fix Nettles Park first? The dog park is a disgrace. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Beth Carlock. I also live in Calhoun Forest. I've heard a lot of good arguments tonight, some on both sides. The two issues that I think are most important are the impact on traffic and the impact on parking. Now, I've heard it said that there's going to be benefits in terms of green space, retail space, and so on for the community, and 75 parking spaces will be made available. I assume that there will be 1,300 parking spaces made available for the students. Is that correct? Is that a good assumption?
Roughly 700.
700. So the other 650 students are not allowed cars, or where are they going to park?
Across our portfolio, about 40% of students actually bring cars. So we're
Okay, so that has not been.
So Beth, let me just make sure, and Jeremiah, stop the clock real quickly. If city council's okay with you asking developer questions, that's great.
Sorry.
No, I'm emphasizing consistency. I was giving that feedback. I'm trying to make sure we stay consistent with our approach tonight.
Okay.
And so if city council's okay with that, and I'll look as a head nod, which I assume, I won't speak for them. I'm seeing head nods, yes. So yes, if you'd like to ask those questions, absolutely.
I appreciate that because that is one of my major concerns, is the fact that we are going to have many more students than that who are trying to bring their cars onto campus or onto their housing development, or they're going to have friends visiting them, they're going to have stayover relatives, whatever, and we're going to have a spillover parking nightmare in this area. And it's going to be in the Abernathy Park area of downtown. The other, of course, is the traffic and the impact of 1,350 additional students merging their cars into the traffic in this area, which is already, as we know, an unpleasant situation under any circumstances, is a major problem. And this doesn't even get into the fact that it's Abernathy Park, which has been brought up before. It's a good area for all of us. It's important to the Clemson spirit. All I'm saying is students need housing. Perhaps there are better solutions than putting it in the middle of our downtown area.
Other comments? If there's anybody else, I'm going to read one that was submitted before this meeting. Totally opposed to the proposed 1,300-bed development. Our beautiful city has been so negatively affected by the existing housing units. We do not need more. Let Clemson University build on their land, preserve our community. Additionally, the infrastructure in our community cannot cope with the additional housing units and vehicles, traffic lights. The City Council will be delinquent in their administration of their duties, as well as representing the interests of Clemson residents. This was submitted by Barbara Allen, who lives on, I don't think she,
Mountain View Lane.
Mountain View, yeah.
It's giant and blue right there on the right upper side, Robert, where even I can see it.
Well, see, it changed colors right there. 221, I know, I need glasses. Thank you. Thank you. 221 Mountain View Lane here in Clemson, obviously. So, other comments? Nelson, yes, sir. If you'd like to come back and make a repeat. With everybody's, I need a head nod. Yes, okay.
When you presented, it was a wow. I'm originally from Brooklyn, and I know what those buildings are like. I am a halfback. 12 miles. It takes 12 hours to drive to Brooklyn, 12 hours to drive to Miami, so I'm a true halfback. I was thinking of a comment that the gentleman made with the dog, because I told you I use that Kiwi Trail as a shortcut, and I see the mess on the left side, and you said it's in shambles, right? Who owns that property? Who left it in shambles? Who owns that property? I thought you bought all that property.
We've not yet, no.
So who's leaving that in shambles? Who's responsible for that?
That's the existing property owner.
Yes, okay, so that's, okay, so I thought it was you, so you got a pass. And one last thing, I have spoken several times with Mrs. Abernathy, the widow, and she's also appalled at what's going on, and she's against this project.
Good evening, Towsland, 100 Devonshire Court. I think a lot has been, a lot of valid things have been said, people in support and mostly people who are not in support. And I'm completely apathetic. I'm not saying it's an awesome project. I'm not saying it's the worst thing that can go there. But I will say, the exception, I think, of Mr. Allison. I'm not sure, I apologize if this is incorrect. I don't think there's anybody sitting in here that served on council or bar or planning commission. And if I'm incorrect, you did, okay. So, you know, the apathy that leads to all of this is what put us in the position that we're in. Because now, I think one person said it's way too much growth, way too fast. And I think that's accurate, right? Like, I've been here 50 plus years, and it seems like the last little bit, it has totally exploded. And I blame Dabo. I think the Dabonomics of Clemson is a real thing, and I think that Clemson and the community that we live in is an awesome place to live, and I think we all make a conscious effort to live here. But I really wish, instead of having the international headquarters of the Town and Gown Association right here, and I really wish that instead of the anger that is displayed to council by the residents who either earned a paycheck on the university or still earn a paycheck at the university, how many meetings have they had with their department head, with their dean, with their provost, with the president to say, look, I love working here, but you're wrecking my community, so I'm gonna move. I'm gonna resign my tenured position and I'm gonna go somewhere else. Nobody's doing that because we like being here. And the university is not Harvard, it's not Princeton, it's not Dartmouth. Somehow they've become this elitist organization that, I attended Clemson, I don't think I get in today. We need more students because we're a land grant institution. We're supposed to be educating the people in this state. We're not supposed to be taking as much money from the kids from New Jersey or Boston or California or Florida, which if you look at our out-of-state population, they're all from places of the country that cost a whole lot more, right? And someone mentioned that the local kids get priced out. These developers that are doing all this, they're meeting a demand, right? And I'm not sure that they are more than a rounding error more expensive than what the university charges, which is one of the reasons nobody wants to live on campus, right? They don't like the rules, whether it is the alcohol policies, whether it is the overnight policies, whether it is the parking policies, all the things that nobody really wants to talk about. It makes people uncomfortable. I have no problem saying, look, the kids aren't going to live on campus. That's why the university's not trying, right? But I do believe in property rights, and I do think that people have the right, just people on Shorecrest have the right to buy their house for $300K and sell it for 1.3 or more. And all that is happening. So the economics of the entire community benefit, while maybe our quality of life suffers, maybe not, but someone else mentioned the safety, I think it was you. That Bixby corner, we walk across the street from our office to go eat lunch there. And there is a crosswalk, and most people respect the crosswalk. But right now, when people come out of Kiwi Trail, it's not disrespect, they just don't see you. So you're in the crosswalk when they turn out. So all of these things are gonna get worse if we don't get serious about safety, underpasses, overpasses, get the kids on bicycles out of the sidewalks before something bad happens. All of this needs to be dealt with. But as far as the growth, if you deny it on Kiwi Trail, they're gonna build it elsewhere. And we've already denied in recent history a grocery store for this site, and then we denied a hotel for this site. So if we deny this, I'm worried because the progression for density or it being worse is getting worse, right? I'm worried if you don't do this, then we wind up with something else we don't want. So I would just ask that you take these impact fees. I don't give a damn about pickleball courts, okay? I would like some street lights and I would like some sidewalks that you don't trip over. Right now we took out the trees on College Avenue up by Evolve and all that. There's just holes, metal grates with holes. So get serious with that stuff. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. I will say a couple closing remarks then to finish out. If you do, we do have the opportunity at a regular city council for public comment as well, if you would like to say something there. Also, we have a lot of young kids outside right now, and adults. Please be careful when you're driving out of here, because we're recognizing 4 teams, right, Jay? Jay's in the back. We're recognizing 4 teams that won state championships over the weekend. Unbelievable for our area. So please be careful. I am literally watching them run around in the parking lot right now. So please, when you leave here, please be careful. We are going to close out public comment. We'll adjourn back. I'm going to give a 10-minute break at 6:35. The last thing that someone did mention to me, if you want some more information, we have been posting on the city Facebook page the Q&A facts throughout this past week and last week on Clemson Next for additional information. You also can go to our city website. We'll close out this public hearing. Like I said, we'll come back for our regular city council at